Hey students, welcome to English 475. This is a 14-week online course through Chaffey College, so I'm glad you made it this far. I'm Professor Vicki Talacro. You may call me Vicki or you may call me Professor Talacro. If you are new to Canvas, you might have experienced something like this where you log in and you see a whole bunch of online courses, or maybe you just see one. This is generally referred to as the dashboard, so be sure that you do click on English 475, the 14-week course. And it's going to take you every week to this page right here, where you'll get a rundown of all the weeks in this course. I've organized this course by week, and every single week you'll have a list of things to do and assignments to complete and quizzes to take. First thing you need to do once you come in here, though, is I do want you to set up your profile. So you can go right over here, click on Profile. You can hit Edit Profile and it will allow you to upload a picture of yourself, and you can include a biography of yourself. Please include a picture that is appropriate and also a picture of you. So as you can see, I've included a picture of me and my kitty here. So getting back to our class, again, all of your work is going to be listed by weeks. Remember, this is a 14-week course, so it's going to move a lot faster than an 18-week course. But also, if you are taking a traditional 18-week course, or let's say a fast track course, you're going to have to be sure you keep track of your courses, because this is week 1 in a 14-week course, but if you are taking an 18-week traditional course, and this is week 4. So don't get yourself confused, but hopefully the way that I've organized it here will help keep it straight. Every week you're going to get a to-do list, and I'll talk about more about that in just a little bit, but from there your to-do list will tell you everything for that whole week, not just the readings, the lectures, the quizzes, the discussion boards. If you have assignments due, all of that will be listed there. So the best way to figure out what you have to do for that week is checking in with that to-do list. Let's see, for the start here, for week 1, I just have a little button, start here, just for those of you who maybe are unfamiliar with online courses, or maybe this is your first time taking Canvas. So this is just a little guide here. Generally, every module is going to be available to you on Sundays. Sometimes if I can finish them on Saturday, or if I can upload them Friday or Saturday, I will do that and make them open sooner. But typically that it will be every Sunday. So from there, you should click on the to-do list for the week, again, so that you can plan. I know a lot of you who are taking online courses are working, you have children, you have other obligations, and so your schedules are very, very hectic. And I would say that the best way to be successful in this class is to actually have a plan. And the best way to have a plan is to know exactly what you have to get done every single week. If you are new to Canvas and you're not entirely sure about how to navigate around it, I would make a couple of suggestions. One is click on things. You can't really hurt things, and you can't really break it. So for instance, here's your toolbar on the left-hand side. Click on grades. You should be able to see your grade, right? If you wanted to click on pages or chats, right? You can certainly click on it. You're not gonna break it. If you have a more specific question, like how to submit an assignment, I've included a link here to the student guide. You can click on that link, and it's a really good guide. You can, in the search bar, you could put how to turn an assignment on there, and it'll break it down for you. Again, in general, discussion boards, simply all that a discussion board is, if you're new to online courses, it's like a classroom discussion. Although in our case, because we don't see each other during the week, right, and I don't see you face to face, you are getting points for posting your responses to the readings and the lectures. So once you click on the discussion board, right, you should be able to see the instructions, and there will be specific instructions for that particular week. You won't be able to see everybody's posts, though, until you post your own discussion board. So if you're the kind of person that likes to wait and see what everybody says, that won't happen on the discussion board. You kind of have to come up with your own thoughts first and post those, and then you'll be able to see what everybody else put. Generally in this class, your discussion boards are going to be due on Thursdays before 11:55 at night. Your quizzes, so every week you're going to have a quiz. Typically it'll be 5 to 10 questions, and it'll cover the assigned readings, the lectures, maybe past material that I've covered. And typically you're going to get a time limit of 10 minutes. Just so you know that if time runs out, if you exceed the 10 minutes, you will only get credit for the questions that you submitted correctly before that time ran out. Same thing with the due date. Quizzes are going to be due on Wednesdays before 11:55 p.m. And so if you start the quiz at 11:50 in the evening and you're not quite done, you're only going to get credit for those questions that you got correct prior to time going out. So make sure you plan ahead for those particular things. If you do have a registered disability with Chafee's DPS office, please make sure you let me know if you need accommodations. The sooner you can let me know, the better. All right, so if I click next here at the bottom of each page, it will take me to the next page that I'm supposed to do. And so you'll see in this particular case, here's our to-do list. And again, every week you're going to get a to-do list like this one. And so if I were you, I would check this on Sunday. I might even print this out or take a picture of it, and that way you could make your schedule accordingly. Again, the best way to be successful in this class is just to know what you have to do, have a realistic expectation of how long it's going to take you, right? And give yourself the time to do that. So first thing to do for the week of January 28th and February 3rd is to read the syllabus. And I've written on here, yes, you actually need to read it. And I am going to go over it, but that does not count as reading it. So even after I go over it right now in this lecture, I would want you to pause that, or once you finish this video, go ahead and read through the syllabus. But all I have to do to get to it is click on syllabus right there, and you'll see the PDF, and you can click on it and it will download, and I have it right up here for you. So again, I'm just going to briefly sort of go over these things, but again, I want you to make sure that you read it in depth. This is English 475, so this is the course right before English 1A. So this is really the course in which you are going to be learning to the fundamentals of college reading and writing. So as I've put in the description here, you are going to be reading and writing more than you probably thought you could. Some of you might have taken this course before and underestimated it, but it really is a lot of work. And because we are in a 14-week semester with this particular course instead of an 18-week semester, it's going to feel a lot heavier than it normally would. In addition, this is an online course, and if you've had online courses in the past, you know this to be true, but online courses in general require a lot more energy and time than a regular course. Sometimes students think that because they're online somehow that they're easier, and the fact of the matter is it's not any easier at all, and in fact it's a lot harder. You're reading in a vacuum sometimes, you're writing in a vacuum sometimes, and so it can feel a little bit like you're out there by yourself. Certainly, I encourage you to get a hold of me if you have questions, right? And to be checking in on this course quite often. But here is my contact information. The best way to get a hold of me is email. Here is my Chafee email. Make sure you put Victoria and not Vicky, even though I prefer you to call me Vicky. I do have voicemail that goes to my office, but unless I'm there, I'm typically not going to answer it. You can always leave me a message and I'll get back to you. I do have an office on campus, and it's in the Courtyard of Language Arts area at the Rancho campus. And typically I'm in my office Mondays and Wednesdays 11 to 12, and then Tuesdays from 11:30 to 12:30. So if it happens to be office hours and that's a good time for you to meet, you can always drop on by my office. If that doesn't work for you, you can certainly email me and let me know, and we can make an appointment for you to come by. If you wanted to drop something to me, like work or an assignment or something like that, you can always put it in my faculty mailbox, although this is an online class, so typically that probably wouldn't happen. So let me go back up here to the required materials. You will see here that there are 2 books that will be required for this course. One is Steps to Writing Well, and I've given you the ISBN number because there are lots of editions of this book out there, and I want you to have the 13th edition, but you will see that there will be the 12th edition and the 10th edition and on and on and on. If you happen to purchase an edition that is not the same edition as the one that I have assigned, it is up to you to figure out whether or not you are reading the right pages. It is not up to me. I will not tell you what the different editions, I don't even own the different editions, to be honest with you, so I wouldn't even be able to tell you. But that is probably going to be frustrating for you. Also, it can get you confused. I had a student a few years ago who tried to use a different edition book and would try to figure out which pages to read, but ultimately was constantly reading the wrong pages. So the student was never prepared for the quizzes or the writing assignments. So just be aware. You can rent or buy this textbook in the Chaffey bookstore as well. The other book that we're going to be reading is called The Book of Unknown Americans. This is a novel, and this happens to be our college book of the year. And it is a wonderful novel. It reads very quickly, and we'll be talking about all different types of immigrants. So you'll notice the theme here in the syllabus is immigration, and I've included a bunch of historical photographs. I do recommend also having a notebook for taking notes. Again, even though this is an online course, you still should be practicing those academic skills and taking notes. Certainly I recommend having highlighters, pens, dictionary.com. I certainly have that app on my phone. I constantly want you to be looking up words you don't know. Also, check your Panther email regularly, please. This is the only way I can get a hold of students. And so when I send emails out to the class or reminders or announcements, that is where your email will go. And so I know that a lot of you probably prefer a personal email, but that is not the one that Chaffey will use. So please make sure you do check that one. Also, if you or let me rephrase that. I strongly recommend you saving all of your work for this class, especially all the writing that you do. I would save it on a flash drive or on Google Drive or on your hard drive somehow, because you're going to be writing a lot. Every single week you're going to be writing these long discussion boards. You're going to be writing essays in this class and outlines. And the worst thing that you could do is be working on that and then the work just disappears somewhere. And we all have been there, I think, with computers sort of eating our work up. So be careful about that. All right, so participation, excuse me. So because you are going to have a higher chance of success in this class if you check in regularly, you should be checking in regularly. So all of the discussion boards, the readings, the essays, they all have really hard deadlines. So please make sure you make it a priority to complete the work. Please make sure you're prepared when you go to the discussion boards, that you're not just kind of half-assing it, right, and showing up on the discussion board and you're going to post a couple things and get out, right? I want you to take this class seriously. So I would make a routine around the deadlines and around your schedule so that you can devote the amount of time that it will take in order to be successful in this class. So again, because it's a 14-week course, I would plan on spending about 8 to 12 hours of work a week between all of your reading, all of your writing, watching the lectures, right? Some weeks you are going to require more time than that, some weeks even a little less. So please make sure, again, that you make a schedule around that. So if you have an emergency, right, you have to leave town, it's still your responsibility to get all the homework assignments, right, syllabus changes, announcements. Again, you should constantly plan ahead in this course. If there's one thing that I have seen happen, it's that you just don't know sometimes what's around the corner. And so if you constantly plan ahead in this course and you're not waiting until deadlines the minute before something's due in order to submit, you're much more likely to succeed. So a large portion of your grade will require that you participate with me and with your classmates every single week. So I do have that high expectation that you're going to respond professionally, you're going to respond academically, and respectfully at all times in this course. So computer equipment and skills. Course, taking an online course, as I mentioned, can be difficult. You really do need to have regular access to a computer. You don't have to have special software. However, you do need access to the internet that's reliable. You need an email service, right? You need a word processing program, and you should be familiar already with how to upload files, navigate the web, use email, calculate your word count, and work with downloads. So if you don't have the proper equipment or the skills, this class will be almost impossible to complete successfully. And again, I've seen that happen where students sign up and they think that they can figure it out and take care of all the course material at the same time. But if you already kind of struggle with navigating the web, this is going to be a difficult course. So again, I've given you some information here on Canvas. If you ever have trouble sometimes with the direct link from the Chaffey portal, you can go directly to Canvas by typing in canvas.chaffey.edu. If you happen to ever have trouble logging into Canvas, right, you can call the help desk at Chaffey, right, or email them. Please always be sure to include your name, your ID, and the course name and number so they know who they're talking to. All right, classroom policies. So late paper policy, all assignments are going to be due on the day listed on the syllabus and on the course modules without exceptions. However, everyone in this class is going to get one late pass per semester to use on any assignment with the exception of the very last essay, because obviously I need to grade those and turn those around and submit final grades pretty quickly. So if you would like to use your late pass, right, you have to email me on or before the assignment is due and let me know that you would like to use the late pass. Once you have asked to use that late pass, you're going to get 1 week to complete that assignment and turn it in for full credit. However, if you don't email me before the deadline, right, you cannot use your late pass. And if you don't turn in your assignment within that 1 week extension, you're going to receive 0 credit for that. So just so you know, you only have one of those late papers, so I would choose wisely. Me personally, I would save it until something happens, right? Inevitably, sometimes work gets busy and you might have to work overtime or kids get sick, right? I would save it for one of those sort of unexpected emergencies. Plagiarism. This is super important in an online course. There's lots of information on the internet available that might seem easy to snag from one source and post as your own words, but any representation, whether intentional or unintentional, of someone else's ideas or words, right, and you are trying to pass it off as your own is going to be counted as plagiarism. So not only will you receive a 0 on that assignment, you can receive a 0 in the course, right? So you can automatically fail the course. And I might file an academic sanction against you, just depending on the severity of the violation. I have seen students do this with essays, particularly with essays that they get on these websites that are like, write my essay for me. All of your essays in this class are going to be turned in on turnitin.com. And if you've never used that before, it is already scanning the entire internet to see if that work is original or not. So even if you change only a few words, it's still going to catch that because it's looking for patterns of words, ideas, phrases, those kinds of things. So right now, I am just going to caution you to be careful of that. Again, I know sometimes things get stressful and students want easy answers. If there were easy ways, right, to get this knowledge in your head, believe me, I would be the first person that would say, like, here's what you do in order to get around that. But the fact of the matter is this course is after you improving your reading skills and your writing skills, and there's only one way to do that, which is to practice both of those. So content disclaimer. So it is expected that students enrolled in this course will be willing to engage and carefully consider a range of materials and subject matter. So we will be reading texts that treat questions of sexuality and the body fairly candidly. Text will contain adult language or subject matter. So if you are easily offended or perhaps there are certain topics you don't want to talk about, right, this might not be the course for you. I also want to take a moment to let you know that we're going to be reading each other's work as a major component of this course. So some of you right now are thinking, what, me? Yeah, you. Everyone's essay is going to be posted up on the discussion board and we are all going to read them and we're going to write comments. This is not to scare you, right? At no time in this class will any student be attacked, right, for their ideas, right, for their beliefs, or even for their words, right? We are all here to learn about reading and writing, and I want you to feel like this is a place where you can practice those particular skills. So in every single class, right, or discussion, or however you want to say that, I expect you to be organized and prepared and ready to contribute. So I really, truly want you to have completed your readings before you show up for discussion board. When you show up to live chats, right, again, I want you to have questions in mind. So be constantly be working towards those ideas here. So Chaffey College resources. We have language success centers at all 3 campuses, and I'll get to that in a second, how that's going to apply particularly to your grade. For those of you who've taken 475 before, right, or 575, you know that you have 5 stamps in association with this class, and you can certainly complete those at any of these 3 campuses here. You'll also have the option with this class to do that online as well. Just so you know that if you did want some tutoring, some one-on-one with one of our wonderful Chaffey College tutors, right, you can certainly go to any of these 3 campuses. You're automatically enrolled because you are a student. However, tutoring does not count as a part of your Language Success Center. All right, so here's some other good resources. I'm going to kind of gloss over those fairly quickly, and again, you can take the time to read through those things and know all about them. Here is our college mission. I love this one, improving lives through education. Something I certainly believe in. All right, grades and assignments, stuff you guys care about. So notice here, essays are going to be worth 40% of this course. So over this semester, you're going to write 4 different types of essays. So that for this particular course, that's about every 3 weeks. So this is week 1. So already in 2 weeks, you're going to have an essay due. So think about that. So again, I'm not trying to make you panic, but what I'm trying to do is just to set you up with the realistic expectation that every week you're going to have to work on these things. And every week I'm going to have different assignments in service to you working on those essays. So for week 2, for instance, you're going to be working on an outline and then a rough draft. And then week 3, right, you'll be polishing up that rough draft and submitting that final draft. So over a period of every couple of weeks, you're going to be working in steps to get to that final essay. So notice here that those outlines, peer reviews, and rough drafts are worth 14%. I do want to note that peer reviewing means that you are going to be reading each other's essays and then giving feedback to each other on that essay. This has two parts to it. One is that it's going to help you practice identifying those parts of an essay, and it's going to help allow you the opportunity to give someone helpful feedback for them, but it's also going to allow you the opportunity to get feedback about your own writing and where you need to be more clear. So you're going to take those rough drafts and all the feedback you get from your peers, and you're going to revise it and turn it into a final draft. So I do want you to note that a revision does not mean to fix the errors. It means to revise the entire essay. Doesn't necessarily mean you rewrite the entire thing, but revision is more than just fixing stuff, right? So all of these essays have to be typed using MLA formatting and turned in by the deadline. All right. And notice here it does say that all final drafts of the essay are going to be turned in on turnitin.com. Quizzes, I've already mentioned the quizzes, but typically they're going to be a 5-question quiz at the beginning of the week. Again, I strongly recommend taking notes while you read, while you're doing the lecture, because if I were you, I would have those notes ready and in my lap while I was taking the quiz, so that way you can look at those. All right, Language Success Center requirement. 10% of this course is going to be dedicated to you completing your 5 hours of supplemental learning in the Language Success Centers. Before you panic, right, you do not necessarily have to go into the centers. So if you're thinking to yourself right now, I don't have time for this, I don't have time, because you are taking an online course, right, you can do the online version of those Language Success Centers. So what you would do, you actually should already see it in your dashboard, is what's called the COW. I think that stands for Chaffey Online Writing Lab or something like that, right? But essentially you can complete your DLAs, right, and submit them to the COW before those deadlines and still get your credit for your 5 hours of supplemental learning. Okay, so these hours have to be completed by the deadline dates. There is no exception to that, by the way. Those are their deadline dates, and again, they don't make exceptions for those. And they have to be validated by the Language Success Center. So what that means is sometimes students might upload their DLA, and by the way, all a DLA means is a directed learning activity. It's kind of like a worksheet. But I've had students in the past with online courses upload a DLA, and they say, well, I did it, it was completed. And in fact, it wasn't completed, and it wasn't validated by the Language Success Center. So make sure that you get that feedback from them that says you actually did complete your supplemental learning activity there. So again, you can go to the campuses if you'd rather complete those face-to-face, but you do have to finish 5 this entire semester. So make sure you are aware of those deadlines. All right, discussion board and discussion board responses are worth 30% of your grade. So over the course of this semester, we're going to be reading a lot. Many essays, a lot of articles, this novel, right? So not only are you going to be required to read them analytically, but I also want you to discuss this literature in a public forum called a discussion board. So you are going to be required 10 discussion boards, generally due by Thursdays before 11 p.m. So again, think of those like those online or in-class discussions that we would have if we were actually meeting face-to-face. So every week I'm going to assign readings, lecture, or an assignment to complete. Generally, I will pose a series of questions to the discussion board. So when you click on the discussion board, you'll see my directions there. It'll say, you know, what did you think about this thing? Write about this thing and this many words. And so sometimes this is going to require you to do a little research prior to posting your answers. So I would make sure that I'm reading those discussion board questions earlier in the week, so that way when I'm doing my readings, I'm actually looking for the answers while I'm crafting that. So again, if you go on the discussion board and you post an empty answer like, I agree, or loved this reading, right? You are not going to be given credit for those kinds of discussion boards. So I want you to come to the discussion board with your own ideas and to demonstrate that not only have you done the work, but you actually had some thoughts maybe about that reading before posting this. So after you do every discussion board post, you're going to be required to respond to at least 2 classmates' original posts. So these are what I call discussion board responses, and typically those will be due on Saturdays before 11:55 at night. So each response is worth up to 5 points for a total of 10 per week. Your responses should be thoughtful, they should be academic, and as always, they should be respectful in nature. So again, at no time will students be attacked or criticized or mocked for their beliefs or their perspectives. Students should ask questions of each other, offer insightful or differing viewpoints or perspectives, and or respectfully challenge the original discussion board post. So it's okay to disagree with each other here. I just want you to do it in a way that is academic and respectful. So credit will not be earned for responses such as I disagree or that's ridiculous. That's not what happened. So just be aware, right, that I want you to offer something genuine and academic to each other. So let's see, grade breakdown. This course is going to be worth 1,000 points over the next few weeks. So again, just note there, also, I am going to be keeping a grade book on Canvas. So, however, for your essays, I'm going to be using Turnitin.com, and I will grade your essays on Turnitin.com, but you'll see those points appear in Canvas once I have graded that. So I do want you to register on Turnitin.com, so I want you to go over there now. Here's the class ID. Here is the enrollment key, which is what they call password. So please be sure to do that and don't wait until your essay is due, because that's just one more thing that will be frustrating for you. Some important things I want you to consider is that failing to turn in one of the major assignments will probably result in failing the course. Every semester I see students do this where they think that they can skip one essay and they can still pass the course. And although that's mathematically true, if you didn't turn in the final essay, you probably didn't do the rough draft. If you didn't do the rough draft, you might not have done the outline. If you didn't do the outline, you might not have taken a quiz or gotten all the points on the quiz. So it's not just the essay that students are typically missing. It's a whole bunch of other work in service probably to that essay. So please, right now, for those of you trying to figure out what's the least amount of work you can do in this class and still pass, that's probably a terrible way, terrible game plan to start this course with. Typically I don't give extra credit, so do not anticipate it. Certainly if I do offer extra credit, once or twice in the semester, it won't save your grade. So it's just, a little, 1 or 2 points here or there. Make sure you do save all your classwork throughout the term. I mentioned that earlier, but for me personally, I would even be typing my discussion board responses in a Word document and saving those, right? It is important to make sure that you can go back and edit that or look at your word count, those kinds of things. If you do happen to have a question about your grade, right? If I've made a mistake, because I am a real human being, despite what you may think. But if you do have a question, I want you to email me, and be sure you email me from your Panther email. I can't answer questions about your grade from your personal email. So I do reserve the right to change the schedule as necessary. You'll see in just a moment here, there's sort of a loose schedule going on the last 2 pages of the syllabus. And just so you know, depending on how the course goes, we may end up pushing back dates, but it's still your responsibility to know when things are due. So make sure you're checking in regularly to stay on top of what's going on. Again, if you do have questions about the class, the readings, right, something isn't clear to you, make sure you email me. So readings and assignments have to be completed before class on the date listed. And when it says something like steps, right, that's referring to your textbook, this one. And when it says TBOUA is the Book of Unknown Americans. So just FYI. All right, so you'll see this week, right, we have here introductions to 475, the syllabus, each other, language success center orientation. So, and also I want you to get the books. You will notice if I go back here to dashboard, you will notice this CAL, the online version that I mentioned for your Language Success Center stamps. If you click on that, right, here is your section 1 orientation. You do need to go through this and complete each one of these, right? I believe they're just videos. In fact, let's click on it and see what happens. Look at it's just some writing, right? But essentially it tells you how to use the CAL and what exactly it is. So please make sure you click through this stuff and that you understand what it is. And at the end of this orientation, you do have to take this orientation survey. And what that tells me and the Language Success Center people is not only do you understand what the supplemental learning activities are for, what are the deadlines, and how do you submit using this online system. Okay, so again, if you do have questions about that, make sure you let me know. All right, if I didn't make that clear already, make sure you do read that syllabus in its entirety. There may be some quiz questions on there. Okay, I did actually want to talk about some description stuff this week. Let's see here. Perfect. So just very briefly, I'm going to introduce you to description, and description is actually going to be the type of essay that you're going to be doing over the next 3 weeks. So you only have 3 weeks to write this particular essay. It is a personal essay, so hopefully it will feel less daunting than, let's say, some sort of academic essay, but there is a way in which we can write incredibly descriptively. What you will hear me say often in this class is it's about concrete details. So what that means is to use our senses in order to describe something. So we don't just say how something looks, which is the sense of sight, right? Excuse me, we talk about sound, we talk about smell, we talk about touch, and we talk about taste. And what this does is it allows the reader to have a visual or an auditory reaction where we can kind of hear something or kind of smell something. So maybe if you rewind in time and you think about back to, writing classes maybe that you had in high school or junior high, you might have heard teachers say something like, oh, show, don't tell, right? And this is kind of at the core of what they were getting at. In general, when you tell details, it's far less engaging for readers. We don't really care because we can't really have an emotional connection to that in any way. So if I look right here where it says telling details, it says, for lunch, we grilled 16 beef patties a half an inch away from each other and 12 hot dogs all laid out next to each other. Do you really care? Right? It seems to feel descriptive because it tells us exactly what's on the grill, tells us how far away they're laid out, but we don't actually care as a reader. In fact, if you felt your brain go numb for a second, right, it's because there's nothing there that captures you. If you'll notice here, under showing detail, it says, I watched the hot dogs sweat on the grill while the grease from the burgers popped and snapped. Here we have a much more vivid description that allows us to see these hot dogs sweating on the grill, which sounds terribly gross, right? But we can also hear that grease popping and snapping. So this is the kind of stuff we want to do as writers. You also need to think about using really strong verbs and nouns. You're going to hear me say this all the time, but really selecting the right noun and particularly the right verb will help you incorporate those concrete details. So I have an example of just sort of a general sentence. The animal walked quietly through the foliage, right? A student might argue that this adverb here is doing the job of being descriptive, but not really. And part of the problem is we just have a general animal and a general animal walking, and that's not even enough to give us a sense of like a mental picture. So if I have the giraffe and the word stopped, right? Now it's doing something better in that sentence. Is it still like a big sexy sentence? Probably not, right? We could probably even take that to the next level, but just so you know, right? Again, I'm looking for those really strong verbs, really strong nouns, as opposed to adjectives and adverbs. Those are not as descriptive as the right noun and verb. Also notice here that I'm asking for varied sentences. When we talk about descriptive writing, we want your writing to be fresh and original, and part of doing that means to vary up those sentence patterns. So if you've noticed that you use the same words all the time, right, go back in there and change some of those words, right? You want to surprise your reader with the way in which you see the world. Dominant impression or tone, right? It's just the overall mood or feeling that a reader gets about a subject. So you are going to be working with tone when it comes to your particular essay, but also you should be inferring tone when it comes to reading things. This next week you're going to read Gary Soto's The Jacket, and specifically I would ask you, like, well, what is the tone of that essay? How does he feel about the jacket? Does he love it? Does he like it? Does he hate it? Right? What tells you that? Another tool you can use is our similes and metaphors. Both of these things they help us make comparison between things. A simile is when we use a comparison using the word like or the word as. So if I said the moon was like a bowl of milk, right? In the sky, it might look like a bowl of milk, right? A metaphor is actually stronger language, and it's just a direct comparison. So it's not using the word like or as. It would be if I said the moon was a bowl of milk in the sky, right? So again, that would be a direct comparison. Again, I just want you to think of these things as tools in your toolbox. Vantage point. So in a couple, I think maybe in all of the prompts for this particular essay, you are going to be looking from the past, or excuse me, you'll be looking into your past, maybe about childhood or adolescence. And so that means you are looking at it from a specific vantage point. So again, I want you to think about that writing from a fixed vantage point. And what I mean particularly is if you are 28, like me, and you're looking at yourself when you were 8 years old, right? You don't want to switch voices in the middle of your essay in order to sound like an 8-year-old you, right? You sort of stay in your current 28-year-old body, right, and tell the story of being 8 years old. So it's really having that fixed vantage point from which you're going to tell that story. Also be aware of switching point of view, right? I've seen students do this before. Particularly with plural first person seems to be a problem sometimes, and I think that's because a lot of us grew up with siblings, brothers or sisters or cousins or neighborhood kids, and so we end up saying we a lot when we refer to our younger selves, but we really want to make sure we stick with I. All right, audience. So who is this essay for? And often students say, well, it's for you. And the answer is no, it's not for me, right? I want you to consider me when you're reading your essay, but I also want you to consider, more importantly, who else is reading this essay, right? So for instance, it'll be your classmates, right? Are they going to be familiar or unfamiliar with your personal life? And the answer is probably we don't know you, right? So you're going to have to make sure that you craft this essay in a way that we can see and hear and smell and feel the world that you did, and you have to recreate that through those specific concrete details, right? You want to take us and transport us into your memory. All right, we'll get to that part later, but again, I want you to be thinking about that for your essay. Okay, to do, I wanted to show you again, so we kind of looked at the syllabus, which you promised me you're going to read, right? You're already watching the orientation. Books, I do want to make mention about getting these books, and you'll see that I've written that down here as well, right? The Chaffey College Bookstore already has these books to rent or to buy, and you can certainly go there today and go get them, right? The Rancho Library also has copies of these books at the circulation desk, so all you have to do is go into the Rancho Library and go up to the desk and give them, sometimes they'll ask for this course number or my name, right? And they'll allow you to check out those books for an hour at a time. Sometimes I just tell students, hey, you know, read through the book while you're there for an hour, or take pictures, or whatever you need to do. If you choose to order your books from another vendor, especially like online vendors, here's the danger in doing that. I'm not saying you can't do that. I certainly have done that before to save myself a couple of bucks. But it is still your responsibility for getting this reading done, whether or not you have received the books. So you might order the books today and think, oh, I'll have them by the end of the week. And if they don't come by the end of the week, you need to make a plan B in order to get to the library or somehow to access those readings. I have seen students in the past, 5 weeks into a course, tell me that they still haven't received their books from Amazon yet. And all I can do is sort of shrug my shoulders, because you have other options available to you. You can even, if you want to, show up during my office hours. I'll let you look at my book while I'm in office hours as well. So you can certainly do that. So make sure that you're just aware of that caveat there. This week, you need to make sure you take your quiz by Wednesday at 11:55. You post your original discussion board by Thursday at 11:55, and then you respond to 2 classmates' original discussion boards by Saturday at 11:55. And if you have any questions about that, make sure you let me know. Again, notice here at the bottom, if I click next, it'll take me to the very next thing here, which is our orientation, which you'll see as soon as I finish uploading this. Here's the quiz. Again, if you're not ready to take it, right, don't take it. Don't push take it yet. And then here I wanted to show you what the discussion board looks like here. So here's all the directions. Again, it gives you the due dates, the point value. Notice here there are several things I want you to answer, and I want you to have a word minimum for each of these things. So again, just pay attention to all of those directions. Let's see. Oh, there's one last thing I wanted to tell you about. Every week I try to do a live chat, and if you go over here and you click on chat, what I usually do is I send out an announcement at the beginning of every week, and I say, hey everyone, let's have a live chat at this day and time. And all that means is that at that time and that day, you can come over here and you can click chat, and it will show you who is all online, but you can come over and say hello. And this is a real-time chat going back and forth. And often we talk about maybe some of the readings, or I'll explain some of the quiz questions, perhaps if that was unclear, or I'll explain some of the lecture material if that was also unclear. Sometimes I ask you guys questions and we all go back and forth. This isn't video chatting, so it's all just via typing. I've heard from students that the app, typing on the chat app, can be a little funky sometimes, so just be a little patient with it. But I do ask that if you can, when you do attend the chat and you come into this chat room, essentially just say hi to everyone, so that way we know that you're here and you're participating. So typically I don't give credit for the chats simply because all of your schedules are so crazy that it would be hard to assign that. So typically I use that as like supplemental. But honestly, if you want to be successful in this course, try to attend at least a couple of chats. You'll find that it's really helpful in terms of discussing some of that material in a real-time synchronous kind of way. All right, I don't think I have anything else for the week. If you do have questions or you have a concern, or something comes up, make sure you let me know. Via email is always the best way. Other than that, I will see you on the discussion board. Bye, you guys.